Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we have a very important show on a very important topic, which is the new Texas abortion law that just went into effect um, just on the 1st of September. Now, I did a video on this law a couple of months ago before the law had gone into effect, when it was just a bill at that point, or I should say it was law at that point, but the way they wrote it, it was signed into law, but it did not go into effect until the 1st of September. And my advice at that point had been, women of Texas, just leave. You might as well just leave, because the Republicans are gunning for you. And that's exactly what you're seeing. Frankly, when this law was first signed into law by Governor Abbott, before it went into effect, I really did not expect this law to go into effect. I fully expected that either the Supreme Court or one of the federal courts in Texas would have issued an injunction barring them from enforcing this law until a court could issue a ruling as to whether or not this law was constitutional, because clearly it is not. It's in direct violation of Roe versus Wade. And the fact that the Supreme Court has intentionally sidestepped this and allowed this to go into effect is a clear signal to us that the Supreme Court is clearly considering overturning Roe versus Wade. A lot of questions are going to be, what's the test case that's actually going to go to the Supreme Court? There was one other thing that happened this week that I had not even thought of, but it was a really interesting event that I don't think most people really understood the impact of. Was that the State Department said that they will protect any women that want to get an abortion in Texas. And the thing that is so important about that statement is that and the reason they said that they were going to do that is because there is federal legislation in effect that says that you cannot hinder a woman from getting abortion. Not just that a woman has a right to an abortion, but that you cannot hinder a woman from getting an abortion. And these laws went into effect because of the pro-life people that were protesting in front of abortion clinics, people that were preventing women from getting into the clinics. And that's why these federal laws went into effect. And by the State Department saying they are going to enforce this against the Texas law, they have put federal law in direct conflict with the state law. And the reason that's important is because whenever there is a direct conflict between a state law and a federal law, that is a case of first impression for the Supreme Court, which means you can't even file that suit in a lower court in the state of Texas. It has to go directly to the Supreme Court. And this cuts out years of litigation, because we don't have to have a state court rule and then go to an appellate court and get an appellate court rule and then appeal it to the Supreme Court. It goes straight to the Supreme Court, because only the Supreme Court can determine which law takes precedence when there is a conflict between a state and a federal law. So I was really pleased when I saw that the State Department had issued this. There's a couple of, by the way, I was intentionally holding off on saying hello to Mel, because I was waiting till we got a few people in here. And I know that when the show first starts rolling, everybody gets an ad first. So I kind of try to ramble a bit at the beginning so that people don't miss me introducing my guests. So hello, Scientist Mel.
Hello. Hello.
And I am so happy to have Scientist Mel here today, because I can handle the legal aspects of this, but the science aspects are sometimes a little bit beyond me. And so Scientist Mel is going to help me with the science aspects. And then,
I will do my best.
yes, yes, yes. And then if you looked at the thumbnail, it does say that Susan Turpin is coming as well, and this is one of Susan's passions. So I'm really pleased to have Susan on. But it is currently 7 p.m. in where I live, but it is only 5 p.m. where Susan lives. And as a result, Susan is not home from work yet. And Susan had said that she will come, but she cannot come until it might even be an hour into the show before Susan gets here. But when Susan
That's
gets here, we,
okay.
we will have a good discussion with Susan.
I wanted to point out something that you had mentioned about it violating lots of laws, particularly in the US. The UN has put Texas on notice that their restrictive abortion laws violate international law. And so the UN human rights are they monitor, and they're condemning Texas abortion ban as a violation of international law. So we've become, our country has become the very thing that we've went and invaded other countries for,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know? And this was homegrown, you know?
Yeah. So to all the Canadians out there, invade us. Take over our country. We need some help in ruling ourselves. We're unable to protect the human rights of our own citizens.
I would say that, the UK could like take back the colonies, but I don't think they won us. And I don't know, they're not doing so awesome right now with Brexit. So it's like,
Right. That's why I said Canada, not the UK. Australia would be good too. I wouldn't mind, although Australia's got their own problems as well.
everybody does. It just seems like ours are getting much, much worse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's interesting. I've talked about women's health on my channel before. Dr. Leah Torres.
Mm-hmm.
If you follow her on Twitter, you should totally follow her on Twitter. She is a huge activist, and she's been on my channel a couple of times talking about her concerns about, you know, giving health care to pregnant people. And that's what this has really come down to, is restricting access for women or pregnant people to have body autonomy.
Maya Atkinson says, we get a lot of flack for violating international law. Kind of bullshit. They put out a blurb and we don't even get a stern talking to.
It's
It
just,
all comes down to might right makes right. You know, we've got the biggest military in the world, and so whatever we say goes.
yeah, it's kind of like the bullies on the playground,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We got the bigger baseball bats.
Yep. And that is something that I have really seen in the last week or so on both Twitter and YouTube, is just an incredible increase in the boldness of people who are against women's rights.
Mm.
We see more and more people talking about, in the religious community, about complementarianism. Women need to keep in their place. More and more, women need to stay in their own lane. In addition to the abortion issue.
It's frustrating, but I blame a lot of this on the enabling behavior of the last administration.
Oh yeah, no
I,
question.
you know, they were allowed to be horrible to black and brown people. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and then now, we have a decent president, not a perfect president, but a decent human being in office. And they're like, yeah, we're not going to be horrible to black and brown people anymore. Now let's go after the women. So it seems like falling back on always let's go after the women. We're like the fallback people that they want to oppress constantly.
I was really expecting to see more against the LGBTQ community. I mean, that's
Mhm.
always been there, and I thought we would see that stepped up, and I was surprised to see that what we've really seen stepped up instead is attacks on women.
Yep. I mean, I expect that trans women um, will once again be under fire pretty soon.
Mhm.
You know,
Well,
if
they've always
yeah.
been under fire.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I think it's gonna get worse.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think it's gonna get worse.
Mhm. Well, one of the issues with the Texas law that I think is really important, and that is, some people would call it a technical legal issue, and it really isn't technical at all because it's really foundational to all of our law, and that is the
Mhm,
standing issue. Um, there was a large group of attorneys, I can't remember exactly how many, that when this law was first drafted, that attorneys in Texas wrote to Governor Abbott and said, "Do not pass this law. This
mhm,
law takes the whole idea of standing and turns it on its head, and we can't just completely rewrite our legal principles." And what standing means is that you have a nexus with the case. It means that if Mel gets into an auto accident with B, I can't go sue B over Mel's auto accident. I have nothing to do with it. I have no nexus.
mhm.
And the Texas abortion law gives the right to sue to everyone on the planet. You don't have to live in
Nice.
Texas. You just have to be a human being to bring a suit under this law. Now, the abortion has to take place in Texas. That's the only nexus that it requires. But the plaintiff doesn't have to have any kind of connection to the case whatsoever. And
That's
that is
insane.
just so totally in opposition to our entire legal system. It just doesn't even make sense.
It is insane. I just I feel like I'm taking crazy pills every
Mhm,
day.
mhm,
You know, I wake up and then I hear something new has happened. I'm like, "Oh, okay." Just add that to the list of everything that's screwed up, in this country. Um, and I can't imagine what it's like to be, a doctor in Texas right now. I don't I don't know, and all I know is just following different doctors on Twitter and what they have to say about it. Um, oh gosh, they just threw out Texas's lawsuit on voter fraud because they didn't have standing, so it's not like they don't get it. They do
mhm.
get it, don't they? But we know
Yep.
it's not about, "Oh, we've got to protect the rights of this or this," it's about who can we control.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they are most definitely coming after people of color in addition
Mhm.
to women.
Oh,
Um,
yes. Yes, yes.
yeah, I just, it just floors me how Texas thinks that somehow white men have the right to control everything.
I mean, because it's always been that way. So, I mean, there's a whole bias called conservatism. Conservatism bias is one of the main cognitive biases. We've always done it this way. Why should we change?
Mhm,
I mean, we have something called conservatives, conservatism. We've always done it this way. Um, they like being in control and having the power, and the idea of relinquishing power to somebody else who you've treated like garbage is probably really scary. So, I mean, can you imagine if we lived in a matriarchy versus a patriarchy where women could say, "Hey, if you wanna have sex with a lady, guys, you're gonna have to get a vasectomy because,
mhm,
you can't get pregnant without sperm. Therefore, all men should undergo vasectomies until they can show that they're able, because what do women go through when we get an abortion? We have to go through psychological analysis. We have to be taught to, are you certain you want to do this? Are you ready? can you actually mentally understand what you're doing? All right. So, in order to have children, guys, let's put you under psychoanalysis. Make certain you have enough money to raise a kid. And then when we can decide that you can by some arbitrary doctor, doesn't even matter, we'll just reverse your vasectomy and then you can have children. They don't want to have that conversation because that's what they're doing to women. Men like this are afraid that they will be treated the way they have treated women. I think that's why they want to stay in control.
Mm-hmm. B, yes, I did see that comment, and I was going to get to it. First, I do want to address one thing, and that is anyone with an opinion is welcome in my chat. If anyone is of the opinion that all women are sluts and whores, if they want to say that, that's fine. They're entitled to their opinion. So all opinions are welcome, but that you are still free to tell people what a shitty opinion that they have. But yeah, I did see that, and I did want to bring that up. Javier says that women make that choice when they open their legs. Life comes with risk. Having sex is no different. So I suppose, Javier, you're saying that women should just refuse to have sex with a man unless they want a baby? I've seen a number of people say this, and I've said, okay, so you're a member of the anti-sex league, huh?
I think men should only have sex with women if they want to have a baby. And make that known up front. I'm going to have sex with you, but it's going to be because I want to have a baby. Say that every time before you have sex with a woman and see how stupid it sounds.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on. Women know what the risk is. Okay, so Javier, when you go to a bar and you pick up a lady, say, I want to have sex with you because I know there's a risk of having a baby, but I want to do it anyway. Okay. And see how quickly you get turned down. Because and be certain to videotape it and put it on the internet because I really want to see that. Record the whole thing. Just go up to women and say, hey, let's have sex. But, I want to have a baby and see how it goes. I bet he doesn't do it.
Oh, I'm sure he won't. I don't think he lives in Texas either. So
no, if men would say and put the shoes on the other foot and receive or communicate the way that they expect women to communicate, it would be a completely different conversation, but they don't want to have that discussion.
Susan, great to see
Hi.
you.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I was trying to get connected and everything, like sitting in a parking lot, and it was not cooperating with me. So
Hey, I told everyone that it might be an hour before you got here because I thought, when you get home from work, you might need something to eat, you might need to wash up, you might have some obligations that you need to fulfill first. So I told everyone that it might be an hour. So we are all pleasantly surprised that you are here now.
yeah, I was listening a little bit beforehand, but I'm actually the reason you can't see my face right now is because I'm paying attention to my driving. I swear I am.
Okay. Well,
yeah, I'm from Texas. We can multitask.
Right. We've got a comment from Javier. He had previously said that women should just simply say no to sex unless they want a baby. And he says, yeah, that's right. You should wait to have sex with someone unless you both agree that you're willing to take that risk. But the problem with Javier, with your position, in my point of view, Javier, and I'll let Susan and Mel address it as well in a minute, is even married couples don't want to have a baby every time they have sex. If your wife says, I don't want a baby right now. Come back and see me in 2 years, and then I'll think about having sex with you. Do you find that an acceptable answer?
Yeah, that just seems like it's a cop out, and it's that whole thing of, don't have sex unless you want to have a baby, like Javier is saying. What it boils down to is not giving, not just women in this case, but not giving men also autonomy over their own body and their own choices. And also, friendly reminder that consent to sex is not consent to pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those don't go hand in hand. Like, they are not inextricably linked. That's why things like birth control exist.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I think it's funny. How does that translate to gay relationships?
Right. Like,
That's fine.
They don't have sex for babies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I imagine some of them wish they could,
Mhm.
because they would like to have babies, through their intimacy and their intimate acts. But I mean, what a completely vapid point of view.
it really is. It really is.
I
Like,
mean,
I can't honestly take that position seriously, because it is, and it's like you were saying, basically, that it really just completely delegitimizes couples who don't want, not necessarily don't want children at all, but children, definitely don't want children right now. They may want them in the future, but, like you were saying, Granny, are they supposed to just not have sex for 2 years? No, that's entirely ridiculous. Well, granted, I'm not going to deny the existence of asexual people who do not want to have sex.
true.
But there's not a lot of people who are going to say, okay, yeah, that's totally fine. Even if you say only have sex when you're married, but no, if you don't want a baby, even if you're married, don't have sex. That makes no sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's easy for me because I'm ace.
Mhm.
And if I never had sex again, that's fine with me. I really don't care about sex. But
I mean,
so
that's
it's a
okay.
little harder for me to relate to people who have the drive, because I don't.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's weird to just expect everybody to think like you do. And I
Mhm.
think that's probably the biggest problem that we have is people just we've always done it this way. Therefore,
Mhm.
this is the only way to do the things. And
Right.
that doesn't work. As a society, we can't be that way. I mean,
Exactly. It's a
look,
vicious cycle, and someone has to break it,
I mean, look at freaking technology. I mean, for real,
Mhm.
technology alone has changed so much. And I'm a Gen Xer. So I grew up when we had like 5 channels on the TV, and my TV was black and white in my room. And I had an Atari, and that was amazing. Now I have like a custom build computer, 3 monitors, and I'm like got my Xbox in there. It's just have a cell phone and wireless internet. There's no dial up sounds that are screaming in my ears. So if I wasn't going to accept change and just stay back, and we've always done it this way, my God, I can't imagine having to live on the technology from 20 years ago. So why in the world?
God, so much dial up.
Oh my God. Why in the world are we still thinking that, oh, sex is only just this, when we're like, oh, hey, other people exist in the world and they do things a bit differently and they enjoy it that way. Maybe we should learn something and grow and evolve along with that. So it's weird.
One of the things that I thought was interesting was when Governor Abbott signed that law signed that law. He said, now we can protect all life from our creator. And that could possibly be the kiss of death of that law. Now he did not specify who is our creator, and the words "our creator" do appear in the Declaration of Independence, although not in the Constitution.
Mhm.
And it can be interpreted as Mother Nature. I mean, Mother Nature could be our creator. Natural processes could be our creator. But if what he has in mind there is that we have done this to appease a god, then the law is clearly in conflict with the First Amendment.
Yes. And that's where the Satanic Church comes into play, and I'm so excited about them. Have you seen what they're doing?
No, I have not. Tell me about it.
So
They
they were
say-
putting up billboards even before like the law went into effect. I don't want to step all over you, Mel. I'm sorry. I just wanted
it's
to mention the
okay.
billboards because the billboards are amazing.
It's so exciting. They're a huge advocate for women's rights. And they've I think Missouri had had a law that they were passing to where a woman would have to go through counseling in order to get an abortion, and a lot of the pamphlets had Christian ideology in it. And so they sued, and they're like, this is against our religion. Our religion is that a woman should be able to get an abortion. And so now they're going at it with Texas, saying this conflicts with our abortion rights we have with our religion, and you can't do that. So
yeah, the way
it's
they phrase
amazing.
it is wonderful because they say this is in violation of the rights of our religious abortion ritual.
Yes.
And I'm like,
Mm.
yes, Satanic Temple.
It's
It just
amazing.
makes me so happy.
I love
Makes
them
me so
so
happy.
the time that Arkansas had the 10 Commandments, a statue of the 10 Commandments outside of their Capitol building or something. I forget, it was a government building. They went and brought a big old statue of Baphomet and put it right next to them. And I'm like, well, if you guys can do that, we can do this too.
Yes.
Or we could just like not do it at all.
Exactly.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that made me
And
happy.
Javier brings up a good point. You don't need religion to be against abortion, and says, I wish Christians knew that. And I have met other people who are secular pro-life, just like Javier. Susan Felds, now I suddenly can't remember her name, is a well-known secular pro-life person. So yeah, I do recognize that being pro-life is not an exclusively religious position.
Mhm. Oh no, I've had an
Yeah, just more
atheist
often than
guy
not.
in my mentions for 2 days now yelling at me, and he's
Mm.
pro-life, and he's the whole women should keep their legs shut kind of guy. So I'm like, okay.
Or men should keep it in their pants too.
Right.
Like we can't strictly go and slut shame women just because women are the ones that can get pregnant. You know, we cannot strictly shame women for, you know, wanting to terminate a pregnancy that, you know, more often than not, they didn't necessarily consent to the pregnancy,
Right.
much less the circumstances.
Exactly.
One of the aspects of this law that I wanted to bring up, and this is specifically why I wanted to bring Scientist Mel into this stream, was to talk about the science behind the bill. Because the bill calls itself the heartbeat law, but it really is entirely based on outdated science. Because the science that says that a 6-week-old embryo has a beating heart, an independent beating heart, really is not correct science. Mel, can you elaborate on that for us?
Well, I've got an article here, and
Okay.
I can
Do
post
you want me to
this
pull
in-
it up?
I can. Here, let me put it in the chat here for
Okay.
our StreamYards. This is from Live Science. I think they get into the fetal heartbeat at 6 weeks, explain. And this was a conversation that me and Granny were having a little bit before the stream. And this, let's see, they've got a picture here of an ultrasound of an embryo at 6 weeks. And so now, and it says now lawmakers in 9 U.S. states have passed laws banning abortions when a fetal heartbeat can be detected at 6 weeks of pregnancy, according to data from the Guttmacher Institute, which if you haven't checked out that organization, it's pretty awesome.
There we go.
So although
Whoops.
people might picture something that's called a heart-shaped organ beating inside a fetus, that is not the case. It can detect a little flutter in that area, but it's not an actual heart. It's the future heart of the baby. This flutter happens because there's some cells that become the future pacemaker of the heart. They gain the capacity to fire those electrical signals, but the heart isn't actually beating. That's what it's picking up. So, and this comes from Dr. Saima Aftab, I believe. I probably said that wrong. And they are the medical director of the Fetal Care Center at Nicklaus Children's Hospital in Miami. So what people are detecting at that 6 weeks isn't an actual heart. It's just those cells firing off electrical impulses. And the beat is they fire off about 120 beats per minute. And so that's what they're actually hearing. And you can detect that little flutter, but it's not an actual heart. There is no viability. And so a lot of people will think, oh, well, its heart has fully developed. And so, and people associate a lot of sentimentality to the heart. But it's not actually a real heart. So there's a lot of pulling on the heartstrings to get people to think that it's an actual functioning organ, and it's not. You can look up all kinds of information. I have
some of the information I was reading was saying that the muscles that actually cause the heart to contract don't sufficiently develop so that the baby's heart is actually contracting and beating until it reaches about 25 weeks of gestation. And this is also about the same time as viability. And in addition to that, an embryo and a fetus has no brainwave activity until about 25 weeks of gestation. And I understand from a religious standpoint why some people say, well, there's a soul that gets infused by some magical process from some magical being at the moment of conception. Yeah, if you believe in magic, yeah, you can do that. But if you're going to look at what we consider to be a person, if a person is on life support and something is causing their heart to beat for them, but they have no brainwave activity, they are not a live person. They are declared dead and the machines are turned off. And the host body, the woman, is essentially an ECMO machine for the embryo until the embryo develops its own heartbeat and its own brainwave activity.
I sent you a link in our chat. There's a pretty good little breakdown of fetal development, and this is from Cleveland Clinic. One of the interesting things, particularly with the Greg Abbott law, it says, well, the first 6 weeks of pregnancy, you can get an abortion within the first 6 weeks of pregnancy. But here's the thing. Technically, the start of pregnancy is actually the first day of your last menstrual period.
So at that point, you're like, if we're estimating that ovulation is about 2 weeks after that, then
it's about 2 weeks ahead of when conception actually occurs. So you're looking
Mm.
at 4 weeks.
So according to the Texas law, pregnancy begins before fertilization.
Apparently so. And a lot of the pregnancy tests, like the at-home pregnancy tests, won't even like
They
pick
won't
up
detect it.
on the HCG level. Is that what it is? HCG?
Yeah.
Yeah, they won't even pick up on the HCG levels, you know, unless you either take it at just the right time or it won't pick it up at all. Because from what I understand, they fluctuate so wildly, you know, in that first little bit that it's like, I mean, there's literally no point to taking a pregnancy test unless you're, you know, either trying to conceive and really want to know, or you know, something along those lines, because there's not going to be a definite, and a lot of doctors' offices won't even take you until you're like 8 weeks along.
I mean, exactly. And again, a lot of women don't even know they're pregnant until they miss their first menstrual period, which is probably about 6 weeks after the technical pregnancy starts. So you don't even miss your period until after you don't know that you're even pregnant. So there's no way somebody can get an abortion under the current law.
Exactly.
Which, of course, was the intent.
Yes. These are pro-birthers. They just want babies born.
Yeah, and then they don't care about them after they're born. Like, that's the thing, is they use all of the, you know, shaming tactics in order to make it clear to the pregnant person that, you know, you had every opportunity to prevent this and you just shouldn't have had sex, and even though they want to excuse me, they want to get rid of comprehensive sex ed, and they want to get rid of birth control, and they want to teach abstinence only, which has been shown to not work. You should see the way I'm wildly gesticulating in the car right now. It's kind of entertaining. I'm sure the people around me are just all like, what is this lady doing?
She's doing this.
We better be careful not to trigger Susan too much. She's going to have an accident.
She's going to go, ah!
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they use the shaming tactics in order to convince these pregnant people to carry it to term. And then they always say, oh, well, you can put it up for adoption, but adoption is an alternative to parenting. It's not an alternative to pregnancy. And you know, we can't expect everything. And who is going to cover all those medical bills? That's what I want to know. Like,
I mean,
anyway.
we already deal with a disproportionate amount of, this was something Granny and I were talking about right before the stream went live, was Black women will primarily suffer from this. It will mostly be Black and brown women because of their lack of access to resources. And just as an aside, where I live, there is a zip code that has a high, just in my state, has a high infant mortality rate that rivals that of a third world country. It was so bad about 15, 20 years ago that they had to have an emergency session to deal with the fact that these mothers were not getting prenatal care. And guess what community it primarily affected? The Black community. And these women were having babies in their houses, and they were being stillborn, and they were just burying them in the backyard. I mean, this is something that's happening in the US, and it's still happening. We still have a disproportionate amount of infant mortality in our country. So people who don't have access to appropriate health care to be able to go through the prenatal process and that sort of thing they have to opt for abortions and that sort of thing, and birth control to have access to that if they cannot afford to have a baby. So, and we do have a high rate of maternal death. I think Alabama, it's really bad there. Again, Black women mostly, because I mean, there is racism in the medical community. I mean, it's very well documented.
Oh yeah.
So they're going to be affected more than anybody else. And I think that might actually be a thing here that Texas is trying to push as well. And it's, in a way, kind of a form of genocide, in my opinion, because you're going to see a higher number of Black women suffer from this.
Yeah, and I've seen the argument made on the flip side of that. I've seen the argument made, or heard the argument made rather, that the reason that they put low-cost clinics and Planned Parenthood and things of that nature in these low-income neighborhoods is for the sake of preying on Black and brown women, so that we convince them to not continue their pregnancy, and we convince them, to get birth control so they don't end up having children. And I'm just like, where does this lack of logic come from? Like, I get so frustrated, by the people who don't understand that, the maternal mortality rates for Black and brown women are so much higher because they have so much less access to healthcare, just like you were saying, Mel. But then they'll turn around and say, well, y'all are preying on Black and brown women because you just want to end the next generation of them. And I'm just like, do you not understand? Like, this realistically, it ties so much into the cycle of poverty too.
It really does. And particularly where I work right now, at the college where I work, 70% of our student population is poverty line, and a lot of them are minority groups. And having worked in the public education system, I know what's coming in particularly from the inner cities, and we have to deal with a lot of the social issues that have faced many of our students, because the goal is to help our students be successful, which means we have to acknowledge the different obstacles that they face, particularly societal obstacles. And the racism, I have to overcome a lot of that, particularly when I'm talking about vaccines, and they're like Tuskegee, and they bring up all of this. I'm like, yeah, I get you. I completely understand your distrust of medicine because they've failed you a lot. And I get that, but please find somebody you trust who's in medicine, who's in science, that is not a white person, to be an advocate for you. But this is still something that goes on, and it's not because, they're trying to be awful, or anything like this. They're trying to be disruptive. I've seen way more Black people and brown people conform to mask wearing, social distancing, that sort of thing, than I have a lot of white folks. And, so the culture is vastly different, but neither here or there. But there is a disproportionate amount of Black people and brown people who suffer at the hands of stuff like this. And they inherently are going to be the ones who are going to suffer from this abortion ban.
Yeah. And and you already know that whenever they're getting abortion rights, you already know that they're going to be like, well, what's the next thing we can go after in terms of, any kind of reproductive health care? And what I want to know, sorry, mild aside, what I want to know is why they're not going after vasectomies too. Like, like if you're gonna go after birth control, you need to go after vasectomies as well. I'm just saying.
I mean, why not? I heard that, back in the, I think it was late 50s, early 60s, they had to maybe, they all blend together after a while. I'm getting old. They had developed a male birth control pill, and it had the same side effects as what a woman would go through. And they were like, no, we're not doing that. But it's weird. I recently referenced, there's this Mormon woman who's a Mormon blogger, and back in 2018, I think 2018 or 2017, she posted a thread about how 100% of unwanted pregnancies are caused by men. It was great. She was citing sources, going through all of this, and that, we need access to abortions. And if we're going to sit here and go, you know what, women are solely responsible for unwanted pregnancies, let's regulate their bodies. And one of the points that she made is that society is more than willing to let women suffer. We have to alter our bodies. We have to do all of these things. We have to close our legs and not enjoy sex because that makes us terrible. We have to be the ones who are responsible. I can't get on a birth control pill. I can't do it. It messes up my hormones to the point that I cannot function appropriately as a human. I can't do it. It messes up my mental state. I can't think properly. I tried several times. Can't do it. Doesn't work for me. So that's not an option for me. So why is it solely my responsibility to not get pregnant if I don't want a pregnancy? There has to be, some kind of responsibility on the other party.
Sassy Heathen brings up a good point, which also goes back to a point in the statute itself that I wanted to bring up that shows just how much this really is not about protecting embryos, that it's about controlling women. Sassy says, what is this going to mean for IVF, the IVF industry and selective abortions they perform on multiple implanted embryos? And the answer to you, Sassy, is absolutely nothing, because, and let me pull the law back up.
Those were all wanted.
I've got too many
right
windows up here. Here it is. But they have specifically defined a pregnancy to be inside of a woman. If an embryo is not located inside of a woman, then it is not protected. Which just goes to show you that what they want here isn't to protect embryos, it's to control women.
Exactly correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's different. That's in them test tubes. That ain't natural. That's not the way God intended.
And here it is. Pregnancy means the human female reproductive condition beginning with fertilization that occurs when the woman is carrying the developing human offspring. So if it's not being carried by a woman, by definition in Texas, it is not an embryo. It's not a person. It's not protected. So the law is only intended to protect embryos that are in women. It does not protect embryos that are not inside of women.
Well, and what I'm really curious about, and I feel like it's probably been discussed to a point of exhaustion, and I'm very sorry, I don't know if y'all discussed this earlier. I would like to know what it means for those who suffer miscarriages, because there are obviously vindictive partners in this world who would be more than willing to lie about the circumstances of a miscarriage, say that it was completely intentional and it was something that the pregnant person caused. And I'm curious to see how it would be weaponized.
No, it can't, because if you have a miscarriage, then there is no more heartbeat. Even that flutter that you get from the gestational sac ceases at a miscarriage. And I actually had something similar, although it wasn't a miscarriage. I had a stillbirth, but I carried a dead baby for 3 weeks. And when we went to the doctor, and at 30 weeks, the baby's heartbeat stopped beating. And this was a viable baby before the heartbeat stopped. But for 3 weeks, I carried a baby that had no heartbeat. And so I would have been allowed to abort this dead fetus under this law.
Well, at that point, it's just basically a DNC. It's not
right. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, I didn't have a DNC. I had a full vaginal birth because this was a 30-week fetus.
Yeah.
This was yeah.
I am so sorry.
Yeah, that's really rough. I'm sorry.
That's why when people say the day my firstborn was born was the happiest day of my life, I say the day my firstborn was born was the worst day of my life. People look at me kind of funny, but yeah, it was. But it's easy for me to talk about now. That was in 1984. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Sassy Heathen asks another question, which is an excellent one. Okay, but what about selective abortions when, say, a woman has 4 or 5 embryos that implant and they abort to increase the chances of successful pregnancy? Yeah, under this law, you cannot do that. Under this law, you would have to let all the embryos develop, and most likely they're all going to result in a miscarriage, and you're just going to have to start all over.
Yeah, they wouldn't have enough resources in order to support however many were implanted. The human body can only do so much, and pregnancy is very rough on a person. So
to have that Octomom thing, I don't understand that at all.
That just seems like it was miserable for that poor woman.
How did she walk after a while?
Right. That just
I'm laughing at Harmonica Man. I missed a carriage once. Damned horse was colorblind. But yeah,
you'll be assured to know that I'm not driving anymore. So
okay,
good,
very good. And Maya brings up a really good point, and that is, there are countries that penalize women for miscarriages. One woman in El Salvador just paroled out last week after 10 years following a murder conviction she maintains was a miscarriage. And Maya, this is not limited to other countries. There have been cases in the United States of this as well. I saw a case once where a woman fell down the stairs and had a miscarriage. And they brought criminal charges against her, claiming that she intentionally allowed herself to fall down the stairs and caused the death of her unborn child.
Oh my God.
I don't know what the result of that was, but I do know that they did try to charge her for falling down the stairs while pregnant. I work as a volunteer child advocate, and I have had parents call me and tell me that their partner who is pregnant is drinking alcohol, and I need to go stop them from drinking alcohol because they're damaging their unborn child. And I go out there and say, hi, how you doing? Are you drinking alcohol? No. Cool. Are you drinking alcohol? Yes. That's cool too, because there's no law against drinking alcohol while you're pregnant. Goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah, the signs that you see that are up in like restaurants and stuff basically say, "Hey, we really discourage this, but legally there's nothing you can do." Like when I took my TBC stuff for the Alcohol and Beverage Commission in Texas, they were just like, "You're not allowed to. I mean, unless they're drunk, you're not allowed to refuse a pregnant woman alcohol because she can." I mean, I don't know what kind of.
Right.
I mean, I guess it would technically be pregnancy discrimination, but I don't know. I don't know the legality behind it,
No, it
but
would be
you're
sex
not allowed to.
discrimination because
Okay, yeah,
you're discriminating against the woman that you would serve
yeah,
that to a male customer but not a female customer.
right, yeah, makes
Mm.
sense. Yeah,
Yeah, I would discourage drinking alcohol, but yeah, you can't just
Yeah.
tell a person not
It's
to do
definitely
that.
not a good idea.
Yeah.
yeah,
KCA Randy brings up a really good point. And Randy, I was listening to Vi and Eric talk on this topic earlier today on a video they posted this morning. Said I heard an argument that I hadn't heard before a couple days ago. Pro-life people who are okay with exception for rape and incest are admitting that it's about punishing women for consenting to sex. Yeah, I hadn't really thought of that argument either until I heard Vi talking about it. But as much as I think that it's wrong, because if you are if you absolutely have to deny people abortions, at least allow abortions for people who are victims of rape and incest because they had absolutely no choice in this pregnancy.
right,
Not that having a choice
Mhm.
in having sex excuses it, but at least it wasn't completely unconsensual. You know, I don't know if
right.
I'm making sense,
Mhm.
but
No, yeah. The
Randy's
only
right. If you're pro-life and you say except for rape and incest, then you're not protecting the embryo. You're punishing the mother.
right, and what bothers me about the idea of only in cases of rape and incest is sort of along those same lines as you were saying, Granny. But it's that, it's basically that a woman has to be violated in order to gain some kind of autonomy, and that's the part of it that doesn't sit right with me. Is like a woman
Mhm.
has to be raped, or a woman has to be a victim of incest, or a woman has to you know undergo something else. Because I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
It has to be
She has
some
to
kind of
undergo something else
violent
traumatic.
act. It has to be a violent act
Right,
for her to be able to say, "Yeah, I don't want to get pregnant."
And
right.
then Governor Abbott, in all of his glorious wisdom, just the other day came out with the statement that, hey, we're going to take care of this because Texas is going to get rid of all rapists. I'm wondering if they're going to go out there with all their guns and just, if anyone's accused of rape, just shoot them on the spot.
Oh my god. Do you guys know that their backlog on rape kits, it was around 6,000 in February, I think, of 2020. It's currently their backlog on rape kits is around 2,100. So they're not so great with that. And I think the latest numbers they had, oh gosh, I pulled them up. There was around 14,000 rapes, I think, in the last year. Let me see if I can find those numbers.
Part of the issue, though, is that when you have this culture, rape doesn't get reported.
No, it
And
doesn't.
the more
Yeah,
that
like
the
there's no
men are in
point.
control, the less the women are going to report it when they are being raped because they know that nobody's going to do anything about it.
They're not.
Yeah.
And it looks like Texas is the 15th most dangerous state in the nation for rape and sexual assaults, just over 55 rapes per 100,000 people.
Yeah, sounds about right. I'm as much as I loved, living in Texas and doing a lot of advocacy stuff there. Sorry, I'm trying to feed the cat without letting the other cat get into the food. Like I love doing the advocacy stuff and everything, but I don't really think I miss it all that much, just for the sake of having to go through all of this again, like
Mhm.
go through all of this stuff. Because oh my God, sorry, my cat's being really loud. Stop being loud. I don't know. To a certain extent, I know that I would be fighting as much as possible, but it's
Mhm.
easy to get really, really disillusioned with everything,
Mhm. Mhm.
It's easy to get really frustrated.
And this comment from Javier is exactly a big part of the problem. If
Mhm.
only men were allowed to kill the men who raped their loved ones, but once again, people's faith in the government fails again. Now, I don't know if that's sarcasm, but yeah, that's exactly what the problem is with this law. We're creating a vigilante justice system. We are taking the power of law enforcement away from the government and giving it to private citizens. And I don't know if they're trying to revive the old west of the vigilante justice system, but if that's the case, I don't know. It didn't work the first time. What makes you think it's going to work the second?
Mhm.
Yeah, I saw that there were subreddits, like Reddit forums and Facebook groups for people who just wanted to report those who had abortions and abortion providers and stuff like that in order to collect bounties. Like
Mhm.
it was like Texas Bounty Hunters or something like that was the subreddit that luckily got shut down because Reddit was like, no, you're not doing that.
Mhm.
But it's
Yeah.
I
just
liked this.
the gall.
I liked this response to Governor Abbott. Please eliminate all rapists immediately. I am a native Texan, an artist and an activist, a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and a voter. Hear my voice, Governor Abbott. Abortion bill won't force rape victims to have babies. Texas will eliminate rapists. Please do. Indeed, why haven't you done so already? You make it sound so simple. Your statements reveal how terribly out of touch from reality you are. You are no good for Texas.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
That's so
Sending
funny.
all my love to Pat.
Oh goodness. I just have a really hard time with a lot of all of what Greg Abbott is doing, and because really none of it has anything to do with protecting babies or women. It has everything to do with controlling women, and I really think controlling Black women, controlling, and scaring them into submission.
Mhm.
I think this
Mm-hmm.
is meant to be a scare tactic.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's, one of the things that I was unable to get for this show that I really wanted was I wanted to bring in a woman who actually currently lives in Texas to
Mhm.
get her feel for, what is this doing to you personally? And I wasn't able
Mhm.
to find that. However, what I did pull up was the valedictorian speech from a young woman who graduated from high school in Texas just a few months ago. And she threw out her speech and did it entirely on this law, even before this law went into effect. Her speech went viral, and I I sure hope this woman goes into media or some place where she can be a public speaker because she's damn good. Um, Here she is.
I'm not usually very good at expressing my gratitude for the people that I care about,
Can you hear that?
but I would like to
Mm-hmm.
say
Yeah.
thank you to Coach. I think he's had a bigger role in my life than he realizes. Okay. As we leave high school, we need to make our voices heard. Today I was going to talk about TV and media and content because it's something that's very important to me. However, under light of recent events, it feels wrong to talk about anything but what is currently affecting me and millions of other women in the state. Recently, the heartbeat bill was passed in Texas. Starting in September, there will be a ban on abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy, regardless of whether the pregnancy was a result of rape or incest. 6 weeks. That's all women get. And so before they realize, most of them don't realize that they're pregnant by 6 weeks. So before they have a chance to decide if they are emotionally, physically, and financially stable enough to carry out a full-term pregnancy, before they have the chance to decide if they can take on the responsibility of bringing another human being into the world, that decision is made for them by a stranger. A decision that will affect the rest of their lives is made by a stranger. I have dreams and hopes and ambitions. Every girl graduating today does. And we have spent our entire lives working towards our future. And without our input and without our consent, our control over that future has been stripped away from us. I am terrified that if my contraceptives fail, I am terrified that if I am raped, then my hopes and aspirations and dreams and efforts for my future will no longer matter. I hope that you can feel how gut-wrenching that is. I hope you can feel how dehumanizing it is to have the autonomy over your own body taken away from you. And I'm talking about this today, on a day as important as this. On a day honoring 12 years of hard academic work, on a day where we are all gathered together, on a day where you are most inclined to listen to a voice like mine, a woman's voice, to tell you that this is a problem, and it's a problem that cannot wait. And I cannot give up this platform to promote complacency and peace when there is a war on my body and a war on my rights. A war on the rights of your mothers, a war on the rights of your sisters, a war on the rights of your daughters. We cannot stay silent. Thank you.
If you would like to see that again, there's a link to that video in the description. I have a link to another video in the description that I thought was extremely moving, and the only reason I'm not putting it up is because it is to music, and it is copyrighted. But it is an excellent group. It's a dance group, and they are wearing handmaids costumes, and there's a portion of this speech that is included with their dances, behind their dance as well. It is a very moving video. So if you want to see that video, it's about 3 minutes long, and there's a link in the description.
I'm not crying, you're crying.
But yeah, that's the whole issue. You know, for me, it's easy. I'm old. I've already had my children. I've had a hysterectomy. I couldn't have children if I wanted to. But for a young woman that's just starting college, you know, if she gets raped in college, her life is over because she now has to stop with her college career and have a baby. And, you know, even if she gives the baby up for adoption, the changes that her body go through are permanent. And the disruption to her life is one that is very difficult to get over when it comes during your college years.
Yeah, there's a lot more involved with, you know, getting pregnant and making the choice, and there's so much more involved than people want to think that there is, because I think that the common misconception, I believe, is that, you know, someone just decides willy-nilly, oh yeah, you know, I just don't feel like being pregnant anymore, I'm just going to get an abortion, when that's not what it always is. Granted, that's still a completely valid reason. I don't feel like having a kid. I don't feel like being pregnant. That's completely valid. I don't think we need to necessarily pass judgment and, determine if someone's reason is good enough. I don't think that's necessarily any of our place. There was somewhere I was going with that and I can't remember entirely now. But more often than not, it's a decision that's not necessarily easy to come by. It is a decision that is not taken lightly. And you hear all these horror stories about, oh, this person has had so many abortions and da da da, and you hear these urban legends about this sort of thing when it's not my business. It's not anybody's business. If someone wants to have an abortion, what can I do to help you, basically? I realize the lighting in here is kind of crummy. I'm sorry. I need to turn on that one.
It's okay.
If somebody goes and gets the flu every year, their doctor isn't going to say, hey, you need to stop going to work because you're getting the flu every year at work.
Right. Yeah. I don't see, and this is just me. I realize a lot of people will differ on this, but I don't see a point in qualifying, good enough, quote unquote, reasons for having an abortion. And that's just me. I realize other people will go, okay, well, I sort of feel like, it's a very, very serious decision, and granted, I'm not saying that for some people it's not, but then there's some people that are just like, this was a very easy decision for me. And that's how it was for me. It was a very, very easy decision for me, to be like, I am currently pregnant. I do not want to have children, and I am going to terminate the pregnancy. It was an easy decision for me. I am not haunted by it. I do not regret having an abortion. I don't believe that it is something that people regret nearly as often as the talking points want to tell you. You hear all these people say, oh, well, so many people regret having an abortion, and it's just like, that's really not the case. And part of the reason why I sort of try to be open about it is that I try to normalize it and make sure that people know, as trying to remember who is the one that has this. I think it's National Network of Abortion Funds has a stickers and stuff that says everyone loves someone who's had an abortion. And that's true, because it's like 1 in 4 women has had an abortion, and we can't treat it like it's something that happens so seldom and something that shouldn't be talked about. I don't know. I just got very personal and very, very candid on your channel. I mean, I know I've expressed it before. Yeah, I know. I've said it on here before and stuff, but I don't know. I think the idea of normalizing talking about it as much as possible will make people feel like they can be more open and less ashamed about it. And that's what laws that's what stuff like Texas is doing. That's what makes it so powerful and scary, is that they're doing all of this in order to control and shame women. And it's gross. It's just gross.
I read.
Anyway, I'm getting off my soapbox.
Oh, that's okay. That's perfectly okay. I just wanted to bring up a couple of points, and we're starting to run out of time. I read an excellent book on the topic by, her last name was Nancy. No, I can't remember her first name. Her last name is Reagan. I can't remember her first name at the moment. But anyway, it was called when abortion was a crime. And it goes through the history of abortion law. And it's really interesting because the whole idea of an unborn fetus or embryo being a baby was actually introduced in about 1900 by yellow journalism. And when it was first introduced into the papers, it was look at the people are killing babies. And when they did that, it was actually ads against pharmacists, because pharmacists were selling herbs that women could use to cause themselves to have an abortion. And they showed these pictures of these toddlers running around, and people just laughed at it because nobody's taking an herb to get rid of a toddler that's inside of a woman. And so the idea did not really sink in and did not take. And most people didn't see anything wrong with abortion at that time. It was considered a normal and natural thing. It didn't start becoming outlawed until the 1940s. And really the issue was that midwives were doing it, and doctors wanted to get rid of midwives and say that only people who had a medical license, only people with an MD could practice medicine. They were trying to push women out of the medical field. And it was one way of pushing women out of the medical field was to say, well, you have to have an MD in order to perform an abortion. And that's what really started it all. But the real crux of the matter is what happened in the 60s and 70s. And that is that when abortion was a crime, hospitals had whole wards that were dedicated to women who had had botched abortions. This book was written by a woman who's a historian at the University of Chicago. So most of her stats were focused on Illinois and the Chicago area. And she was saying Cook County had 6,000 patients a year in these wards that were just for women with botched abortions. And abortion is a fact of life. Making a law against it is not going to make it go away. All it's going to do is push it underground so that abortions, instead of being safe and legal, are going to be performed by anybody's aunt with a coat hanger.
Yeah.
And whether they know what they're doing or not, and whether that coat hanger is clean or not, who knows? And as a result, women die.
Yeah, you're not going to get rid of abortion. You're going to get rid of safe, legal abortion. That's the thing.
Right.
And I think I think that's something people don't understand. They don't understand that. Yeah, this is still going to happen. This is still, like you just said, it's a fact of life. Like it's that exact noise that I just uttered. That is my reaction to the whole entire Texas at this juncture in time.
And the whole pro-life movement was originally a political movement organized to help Reagan get elected. And it worked. It worked.
Yep. Yeah. Reagan went hand in hand with evangelicals. He ate up their votes and they just loved him. That's why he's still like the bar for politicians, or I guess I should say the bar going way
I miss
down here.
Jimmy Carter, if I'm honest. Jimmy Carter was a solid dude.
Yes.
And he still is, man. He broke his hip and then he went back to building houses for Habitat for Humanity. He's still out there in his 80s building homes for people. I'm like, he's
oh god, I thought he was like in his late 90s.
Maybe I
think
know.
He is, because I think I saw something
houses.
I think I saw something that like he and what's his wife's name, Rosalind, that they had been married for like 75 years or something, and
Probably
I'm just like, oh my god,
he
like,
doesn't get enough credit. People are like, well, he did that thing with the hostage, and and then he had to promise not to run again. But honestly, I really think I liked Obama, I did, but Jimmy Carter, solid freaking dude, man. I can't I can't speak highly enough about him. My mother actually became a master gardener and works with Habitat for Humanity, putting, she'll go out there and do the gardens for that, and she got to meet
Aw.
Jimmy Carter. So that's her outreach, is going and putting gardens in for those houses.
Oh, I love it. And I love her. That's amazing. That's the best.
She does what she can. I really want to go find like her friends, because they were making fun of her for not coming to all their parties in the middle of COVID. And she's like, no, I listen to my kid. I'm like, Mama, don't do it. Don't do it. You're going to get the Rona. It's going to make you sick. And she actually did get the Delta variant, but she had been vaccinated. She had been vaccinated, so she just felt mildly tired. And people are like, well, you can still get sick. I'm like, my mom's pushing 70. This would have killed her had she not gotten vaccinated. And if she's scared about something, she'll just text me, would you get this vaccine? I'm like, yeah, I know a guy who helped do the rollout, Doc Savage. He's like, he helped do all the rollout for Pfizer and helped develop the HPV vaccine. I do what he says. And he says to go get vaccinated. So I'm going to do that, because he's been published in Nature. So I'm going to go do what he says. I'm not doing what Karen on Facebook says. I got a friend on speed dial. I can talk to you. What's
Smart.
But oh my goodness. Yeah.
Mel, you got an invitation to Harmonica Man's birthday party tomorrow.
Oh, it depends on what time it is. I actually have a lecture tomorrow night. Tomorrow is my long day. I have a lecture starting at 7:30 in the morning. My college is very, very responsible. So Labor Day was this weekend. I was actually out of town with some family. And we came back, and the college decided to do nothing but online for this week in the event that people contracted the virus. And we go back to in-person next week, but we're all, it's a mask mandate. They really take this seriously. So I'm doing remote teaching this week. I will have a show again this weekend. Some people are like, I missed your show last weekend. I'm like, I know I was out of town, but I'll have one this weekend. Maybe I'll get banned again. YouTube put a strike on my channel saying I was perpetuating misinformation about COVID-19. I thought, that's funny. That's not true at all.
What?
I know.
My Lord.
Somebody must have
Of
reported
all people.
you. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm constantly telling people get vaccinated and listen to the CDC. What's wrong with you? And then they finally took the strike off, because they did finally watch it, even though they didn't actually watch it. They're like, okay, yeah, no, we're sorry about that. I'm like, man, I get mass reported. And I was in Twitter jail for 12 hours the other day.
What?
I know, because I told Rand Paul to use all the Trump cures since he was pushing ivermectin so hard. So I told him, I was like, inject yourself with bleach, eat some horse paste, and shove a flashlight up your butt. That's what Trump wants you to do. And then somebody reported me for advocating self-harm. I said, well, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
So,
I can't argue with that.
I mean, why not? I was like, I didn't even appeal it. I said, I'll just take the hit for 12 hours.
Take one for the team. It's fine.
I went to Twitter jail for 12 hours once.
Twitmo.
What did you do?
Somebody was advocating for some kind of death. I don't remember what it was. No, it was some kind of philosophical position with regards to nihilism. And I said, actually, if you really believe Christianity, then you should kill yourself just to be in heaven. But please do not do that. But because the tweet contained the words "kill yourself," I got put in Twitter jail.
Isn't
That's
that
so
funny?
silly.
Mm-hmm.
And there's time. Nathaniel will argue with Twitter people a lot. He argues with Twitter people quite a bit, and he has people tell him to go kill himself, basically, and nothing happens. So it's like, thanks, Twitter. We can see where your loyalties lie. Jeez. Now I feel a little
Well,
left out because I've never been Twitter banned. I'm a little sad.
Oh gosh, just go and tweet to Rand Paul and tell him to shove a little flashlight up his butt. That should be enough. And to suck on horse paste and inject bleach, and then you'll be in Twitter jail for 12 hours.
Yes. Secret formula.
Okay, well, we are about out of time. So, just to summarize, Texas has passed one of the most horrendous laws in the history of the country. They are trying to revive vigilante justice. They can't seem to understand standing except when it suits their purposes. They want to protect embryos, but only embryos that are inside of women. Embryos that are outside of women are perfectly okay to harm them in any way you so desire, because the Texas law has absolutely nothing about protecting human life. It is everything about controlling women. And the real fear that I have, the Texas law doesn't really affect me directly, but I do not see this as the end. I live in Alabama. And Alabama tried to pass an abortion law that was even more restrictive than the Texas law, or at least as restrictive, because they wanted to ban all abortions, period. But it never did go through. Actually, it did pass, but the governor refused to sign it. We have a woman governor. Usually, she's a twit and she's a Republican, but she got that one right.
Yeah. I remember that.
She also got some things right on COVID too. She was the one that was saying that, the reason that Alabama has the highest COVID rate is because you all won't get vaccinated. Go out and get vaccinated. So, our governor is not a complete twit, even though she is a conservative. Not all conservatives are twits. I would not say that Javier is one of our conservatives, and I would not say that Javier is a twit. I actually enjoy talking to him. He has an interesting point of view. With that said, though, I would like to give each of you an opportunity to shelve yourselves, and if you have any other closing comments, please feel free to add them as well. Mel, we'll let you go first.
Okay. I am working on an open education resource project. I have started a channel on OutSchool. So if you have middle schoolers or high schoolers that need help with chemistry or biology or physical science, I am a licensed certified teacher for middle school through high school. I'm trying to offer that as an opportunity, particularly with all the COVID stuff going on. So if you want a little bit of that, and I will be working more with developing open education resources on a collegiate level for general chemistry. Don't know what I'm going to call it 100% yet, but I have some people working on an intro for me, and it'll be like a year's worth of chemistry with access to free simulations, so you can kind of play around with the different concepts associated with chemistry and learn a bit of the math. And it's just a additional resource. And I'll have game show style quizzes that you'll have access to test your knowledge and things like that. It's just a little side project in my attempt to try to educate people, because y'all, I'm tired. I am so tired. The gloves have come off on Facebook. I'm not even being kind anymore. I'm just laying into people, and they're getting very angry with me. So, I'm so done. I'm so done. If I end up bleeding out in a hallway from a car accident because yet another selfish person who refused to get vaccinated takes up an ICU bed, I'm going to be pissed. I'm really going to be pissed. I'm so done, guys. My kindness meter, Mr. Rogers, would not be very proud of me right now. I'm going to try to read this book. He would be like, I'm trying. I believe in you, Mr. Rogers, but man, He didn't have to live during these times, but he did live through some
Yeah.
times though. Oh my God. Okay.
True.
Yeah, that's all. I'm trying.
I'm trying. Chill-wise, Nathaniel is doing a stream here in probably about an hour and a half. He has made the very masochistic decision to start reviewing Ben Shapiro's latest book, and I'm just like, I have homework to do, so like I can't exactly listen, but I'm still probably going to be listening anyway because he's going to be right behind me. I do eventually want to get back to doing stuff. I don't know if I'm gonna ever bring back Explain Like I'm Five. That was fun, but I might just start doing hangout streams and stuff. I don't know. Those are fun.
They are fun.
Yeah, like they're good times, and I enjoy them, and they're a nice way to sort of relax and not have to take stuff seriously for at least an hour or two. Other than that, not a ton. I guess my closing thoughts are, I guarantee every single one of you knows at least one person who's had an abortion, because if you know me, then you know at least one. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, very good. Next week on my show, Mel, you might enjoy this, or you might want to grade this one for us. I'm having just a walking fish on, and we are doing remedial science for old farts.
Oh, that
And
sounds like fun though.
That's
we're going to
amazing.
talk about human evolution, and it's focused for people like me who, I did not go into a science field, and so my science education stopped in 1979. And when I took the blinders off, when I deconverted, I suddenly discovered that, hey, there's a lot of things that have gone on in science since 1979, and I'm trying to catch up.
If I can make a recommendation,
Mhm.
one of my favorite series that actually somebody sent to me a couple years ago, I was still teaching high school at the time, is The Human Universe by Professor Brian Cox.
Okay.
It's a TV show.
Ooh.
It is so amazing. And it's produced by the BBC. I think you can access it on Amazon. I don't think it's on Netflix or anything, but you can buy it there.
Okay.
He gets into the evolution of human from ape man to spaceman. How is it that we are the only living things that we know of that have managed to leave the planet and do space travel? So he gets into what the current ideologies and ideas are about why is it that the brain capacity expands every 40,000 years in the fossil record. It's amazing. It gets into like the orbit of the Earth and gravity from the other planets. I watched that and I'm just like, I'm like, I probably get inappropriately excited when I watch that show. It was so
no
amazing.
such thing as inappropriate excitement in that sense.
But it was great. It was absolutely great. And that might be some really fun stuff to talk about, to bring that up on your episode. Some of the things he discusses.
One of the things that brought this about was I've heard a number of people talk about how the linear progression of human evolution that we were taught in grade school is wrong, and that it's really more of a tree branch or a different type. And I've heard a lot of people say this, but I never really understood how it worked. And I was watching one of Just a Walking Fish's videos, and he showed a much better picture of how they fit. And I was, now I get it. I've always heard that, but I didn't know exactly how it went. And so I was really happy. And so, yeah, he's going to go and expand on that picture that really
That's
let me see
so
that.
cool. Yeah, there was a lot of coexistence. But yeah, check it out.
It's a lot of fun.
I'll have
all of that just sounds awesome.
It's so cool, isn't it?
It sounds so cool.
I crush really hard on Brian Cox. He teaches at Manchester University in the UK, and I once tweeted, I'm like, next time I'm in the UK, I'm totally going to crash one of his lectures at Manchester U. And they tweeted me back, said, we love Professor Brian as well. Please don't do that. I'm like, I'll be in jail. Scientist Mel is in prison. Why? She crashed the physics lecture. It won't be for anything more exciting than that. She was forcibly removed from a physics lecture.
That's very on brand for you, though. Very on brand.
It is, really.
And then for produced video this week, I'm doing a response to Matt Powell's video, You Should Get Married.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
No words, Matt Powell.
It just shows you how, this abortion thing and the controlling women thing, it's not just abortion. It's coming from different directions as well, telling us we need to get married.
Yep.
So with that, everyone, get vaccinated, stay safe, and live your life. Bye.